First up in the second hour tonight is a new guest to the program. He is Brian Gerrish, Gerrish, from the UK, where God only knows what time it is right now, 3 or 4 a.m., I would guess. Brian was a naval officer serving from 1972 until 1993, lieutenant commander, specializing in anti-submarine warfare. He has a distinguished career and has much to say about many things, but we're going to talk primarily tonight about the UK, how bad things are, and how that whole country has been taken down. This is no accident. It didn't happen by matter of just attrition, by bad times, or anything else. It happened for the very same reasons that this country has been taken down and is now in an active state of deconstruction. Where it's going is not good. We know all that as well. Brian, are you there? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. You're very clear. Good morning, Jeff.
Good, and morning, and indeed it is over there. It's night here. What time is it there?
It's 4:10 in the morning at the moment.
You sound relatively conscious.
That's the coffee.
Ah, yes. All right. Well, good. That coffee has its place in the world, that's for sure. Now, we don't know over here in this country much more than the Zionist-controlled mainstream media tells us. I'm not talking about me and our listeners, but us as Americans. Only 5 or 6 corporations control 95% of the American media. They dictate what policy is. They dictate how stories are spun. In point of fact, the coverage, as you can well imagine, of Ukraine has been disgraceful. It is so outrageously the opposite of what's really going on there that it's despicable. We have a new president there, Poroshenko, who is called the Chocolate King. He's a billionaire. He's also of Jewish ancestry, as is the apparent vice president, from what I'm told. So we have a Zionist coup, another Zionist coup in Ukraine. Anyway, the point is, we don't know, as Americans, what's really going on over there. People buy into the lies all the time. We are being flooded here with illegal immigrants. We may have 35 to 40 million of them now. That's million. They have destroyed this country's educational systems, its healthcare systems. They have overloaded its prisons. They have caused so much grief and destruction. And the same kind of thing is happening to the UK. If you would, let's just talk about the current state of your country, maybe compared to what it was 25, 30 years ago.
Okay. Well, Jeff, the summary you've given, of course, is the key thing, is that what you're seeing in the States is exactly is repeated in the United Kingdom at the moment. But for me, one of the worst areas that we're seeing is the fact that a lot of us are saying that we're moving into a pre-fascist era. We have secret courts operating. We're not putting people in front of juries. We're putting people in front of single judges. This is particularly true in the so-called family courts, where the state is literally taking people's children. We have...
my friend, it does not get any more evil than that. To take a child from a good family, yes, there are bad families, and yes, on occasion, children need to be rescued, but the idea of putting that kind of power in the hands of an individual makes me sick. I went through something similar many years ago, and I hear what you're saying. Go ahead, please.
Well, of course, children are our future, and it was Hitler that originally said that if he could take control of children, he owned the future. And I think this is one of the key reasons why we're seeing the state, certainly in the UK.
Stalin said the same thing.
Break up families, yeah.
Yeah, they all know. It's just a question of time. Take a generation or two and you own the country.
Yes.
In the interim, you can simply take control of the money and you own the country. And you own the soul of the people when you start to program them, and that's what's going on here. We're further down the road to fascism here than I think you are, but the roadmap is clear as to where you're being taken. You've made that statement already. It's sad because I'm sure a lot of Brits understand this. my God, they must just have to walk outside and walk down the street to see who has been forcibly injected into your country. These people didn't just happen to find their way there accidentally.
Well, I wish it was as easy as that. The key problem is still waking people up. But we are seeing more and more people say that something is wrong. They pick up that the country isn't working properly, but they take a little bit of time to actually start to listen to what's causing it. But if I just very quickly run through the other things we're seeing, so we've got children being taken from their families. This is happening on an industrial scale. People who speak out, particularly people who are identifying that there are pedophile rings connected with Westminster and the establishment in Britain, people who discover pedophile rings operating, they are being sectioned. They're being put in mental institutions, and I've recently been talking about 5 cases occurring in different parts of the UK where that's happened. Women, they happen to all be ladies in these 5 cases, but they've been sectioned and put in mental institutions simply for doing the right thing and trying to protect children. We've got a massive government program to take control of people's minds. This is not theory. You can see the government's own documents where they're talking about reframing people so that they believe the right things and they believe the right politics. We've got an increasingly brutal police force. I'm not saying that all our police are bad, because they certainly aren't, but we're seeing an increasing training where the police are led to believe that the public are a threat. So we've now got Britain's police taking, the figure I've been given is 63,000 automatic weapons, plus tasers, plus water cannon. And remember, of course, that people in UK are not armed. The average, or the ordinary civilian in UK doesn't have access to personal weapons, as in the States, and yet we're seeing Britain's police with massive numbers of automatic weapons, never mind handguns. We're seeing the politicians just lie to the public about everything, the state of the country, the fact they've been giving away powers to the European Union. So we're now, you read the papers, you may as well be living in the original Soviet system, because what you read is pure propaganda. And I'll just end on the point that you're talking about Ukraine. Ukraine, so sad, so serious that country has been destabilized with the connivance of the West. But if we take the British broadcasting company, the BBC, lies day in, day out about what's been happening, not only in the Ukraine, but also in Britain itself.
Shouldn't we rename the BBC the BPC for pedophile?
We could use pedophile, or we could use propaganda. But of course, probably few people, particularly in the States, but also worldwide, realise that the BBC is not simply a British broadcasting organisation. What you've got is 2 main parts. You've got the public part, which is £3.65 billion of propaganda machine. That's just the bit that works within the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. But you've now got £1.5 billion worth of private corporation, which is working on propaganda across the world. And the BBC's boasting now about the number of billions of people worldwide that it can access. And of course, they're getting into unstable countries or weak countries. We can take Somalia, or we can take Eastern Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And they're training their own journalists, their own media people in those countries.
Well, we're going to keep going, Todd. The African venue is the new Middle East, except there are natural resources of a different kind. It's still the same old game. Everybody's scrambling now to recolonialize Africa, even though they're not talking like that. The surface may not seem to be that way, but that's exactly what's happening. I am virtually positive that the likelihood is extreme that this Boko Haram is a CIA operation specifically designed to shoehorn American military presence into Nigeria and other countries in the area to allegedly look for these kidnapped girls. And I'll tell you why I'm so convinced of it. I think you folks listening are aware, and I know you are, Brian, that the controllers can't resist pushing things in our face with numbers, with symbolism, sometimes with, I think, perverted humor. You got 3/11, you got 9/11, you got 7/7. You've got operations that have, and tragedies that have names that are just, they're odd. Now, let's talk about Boko Haram. Those are African words. What do you know about this Boko Haram? Anything much, Brian?
Well, I'm going to be honest straight away and say not a great deal.
That's fine. That's fine.
But what I will say is that I totally agree with you that these things are being pushed in our face, and it is obvious that we know we've got the regionalization of Africa going on, and of course we've had all of the problems with the shopping mall in Kenya. Yeah. And when you investigate that, you find that we've got these same corporatist world powers working to destabilize these African nations.
Sure.
So, yep, it's the mineral wealth of Africa, but it's also to break up the nation states in Africa and regionalize it in the same way, exactly the same way that we've got this going on within the European Union.
HIV was supposed to largely depopulate Africa. It didn't work as it was intended, and this is my opinion. And don't count HIV out. It can be tweaked, and it could come back bigger and more vicious and more fatal than ever at any time. It didn't just happen. The evidence points to HIV being laced in the smallpox vaccine inoculation program to eradicate smallpox in the late 1970s, middle late 70s. Now, there are other things going on in Africa as well that we will never even hear about. Big money, bribes, blackmail, the works. It's all going on there. Now, let me see if I can find this here. I finished it up and sent it off, but this organization called Boko Haram. All right, let me hold on one second here. How many girls are kidnapped? Do you remember?
The figure I've seen is 200, I think.
Yeah, it's a little over 200. Okay, I ran a story the other day. Boko Haram, created and funded by CIA. It was a press TV story, very good, and the evidence is rather clear that there is every reason to believe that that's the truth. The CIA operates this kind of thing all the time. It's another false flag op. The idea of the CIA and the other controlling mechanisms, especially the Rothschild banksters and so forth, they like to play games. They like to throw things right at us, right in our face. Dates, names, places, as I've mentioned. You've got all the numbers. You've got the other events to think about. Here's a name, Boko Haram. It's a weird name. It's supposedly a radical group. Okay? But I think it's a joke name. I think it's an out-and-out, right-in-our-face joke name. The CIA, or whoever's behind it, could not resist another prank and having a little fun. There just aren't that many coincidences. Now think of the name Boko Haram, B-O-K-O-H-A-R-A-M, Boko Haram or Boko Haram.